All right, little after work special. Let me take my headphones out so I can hear. Just grabbed a 9-iron, clean face. Haven't hit any balls yet. Talked about this before, but usually the first thing I like to do, my microphones are on, right, is I take my driver. This obviously isn't my gamer. It's an old Persimmon driver, but take a driver and just kind of take some nice, long, rhythmic swings. And I would strongly advise doing what I'm doing, the back and forth rhythm, rather than. I see a lot of people taking practice swings like that, because this back and forth rhythm, it just gets everything not only loose in both directions, both sides of the body loose, but it gets your body's natural timing and rhythm set up. By timing, I mean you don't want to be early or late with anything, and just doing this nice fluid back and forth motion. So late, like say I was late with the club, would mean I get my body rushing way out front, and the club stuck behind me. If I was, early with the club, late with the body, I would kind of, throw the club at it. So that's why not only is this good just for warming you up, getting your muscles loose, but gets everything just a nice timing, feel of timing in the body. And I like to feel a little long, a little John Daly-esque, where in my actual swing, I only get to maybe parallel when I'm really trying to rip a driver. But when I'm just warming up, I'll let it go a little further back, just to really feel the stretch. I've dislocated my arms a bunch, broken collarbones, wrists, broken ankles. Really hurt my back when I was about 17 or so, snowboarding. Really bad spinal injury, and since I basically had a herniated disc that goes out pretty easy. It doesn't take a lot to hurt my back. But my golf swing has never ever hurt my back, except for if I've mentioned this before, when I really, really try to get a ton of hip depth and really get open and impact with a lot of side bend in my body, I end up getting like a pretty sore back after a half basket of balls or whatever. Let me actually hit some balls, see how the swing feels today. Nice smooth 9-iron. Oh, pretty good. A little smoothie, oh yeah, I like that. Like that for the first swing. Might have been a hair low on the face. A touch of that pro thin, where the divot might be a little too far after the ball, but it's better than a fat shot. Maybe not off a mat, because on the mat you get away with fat shots. So hold yourself accountable if you're hitting off of a mat. The ball flight might look good, but you can feel if you hit it fat. If you've been playing for any amount of time, you can feel it. That felt real good too. Someone was asking me earlier about early extension. That might have been a shade more towards the heel than I like. But like I said, that first one was a touch thin, a little bit lower on the face, especially off of a mat. That second one there was the height of it, at least. Basically the alignment of the first one with the height of the second one would have been dead perfect. But someone was talking about early extension. And that's kind of why I mentioned my back, is I know that the positions I get into allow me to hit as many balls as I want every day and not have a sore back. Because when I get too much, like I said, if I get too open at impact, then I get a sore back. So if you look at me at impact, like say right as I'm hitting the ball or an inch before impact, for one, I have a habit of, I set up good, but right off the ball, you're looking at my butt. The first move I make is I've tried to correct it. It's just something I do naturally. I drop back an inch or two. I kind of do this. And then as I'm coming down, you know, I rotate and I basically stay in that same spot. And then as I'm hitting the ball, kind of between the ball and here, is when I kind of drive through it. Kind of my glutes are kind of pinching together. I guess you can consider that a little bit of early extension. At times, it's worse than others. I mean, I definitely struggle with a little bit of early extension. Not that I've ever thought that it made my ball striking suffer. And honestly, what I've noticed is the more I early extend, the more I catch it off the toe. Now, it's supposed to be backwards, but the way I see it is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Kind of like pulling your hand back with a towel makes the towel snap forward. So I think when I try to push my hips back and get cleared, I end up throwing the club at it, being more off the heel. I might even shank it. I've been known to shank it trying to really clear my hips, or hit it more on the heel at least, trying to do that. But what I was saying though is your setup has a lot to do with early extension. So if you were to, you know, center my hip, maybe do I have a belt loop there? So basically the end of my pocket right here, the center of my hips, you know, right here. You want that about in line with the center of your ankle. A lot of people get that back where, you know, the center of my ankle would be about here and the center of their hips are here. So of course, if I'm starting here, you're swinging a club at high speeds. You're gonna find balance. You're gonna, you know, by the time you get to impact, you're gonna find the body's natural balance. So if I'm starting, you know, if I'm starting back here, I'm gonna have to come up into that natural balance point. That's the cause of a lot of people's early extension, is that. And this is something I don't see talked about a lot when it kind of explains early extension versus excessive hip depth. Because I'm a firm believer that everything in the golf swing has a happy medium. And while, you know, you don't want to be driving up onto your toes and, you know, early extending, of course, I do think there's a limit to, I think, excessively getting hip depth and decreasing your spine angle is just as bad as far as ball striking. You know, I'm a big proponent of keeping your head fairly steady. I mean, yes, it might dip down just a little and then explode up just a little. But as far as your spine angle, what I look for, you know, your angle of your spine, if I were to stand up straight, that's 180 degrees. If I were to bend over like a tabletop, 90 degrees. So the more you early extend, you increase your spine angle. The more you get that lead hip depth, you kind of decrease your spine angle. So check this out. If I was to do a slow motion swing and exaggerate the opposite of early extension, getting a lot of hip depth, very open at impact, decreasing my spine angle, I would have to delay my hand motion and keep my right arm very tucked, right? And I'd be getting cleared, I'd be getting open, I'd be getting the side bend, I'd be coming in, and I'd be hitting the ball. So I'm right here. Now if I don't move my arms, my hands, or the club, really, or if I keep the club in my arms and my hands in the same spot, and then come into early extension, it's damn near a foot off the ground. I would completely miss the ball. So if I had the exact same, I'll keep my arms here. If I came through with the same arm movement and had early extension, I would miss the ball. So what players who tend to throw it a little early, you can really throw the club head at the ball, they're kind of extending their arms a little bit because they early extend just a touch, and they get really stretched out to make contact. You know, you're kind of you're stretching out to make contact. So if I were to do that same stretching out to make contact arm and hand movement, the same release that you're used to, but clear your, if I were to clear my hips and make that motion, I just hit right here, way, way back. The ball's here. If I were to really clear my hips, but try to throw my hands, you're gonna hit the ball fat every time. That's why so many players, my back's getting sore just from these examples, but so many players that struggle with a little bit of early extension, that try to not early extend there, they hit it fat, I hit it fat, I hit it fat. And it's because, ideally you're here, right? You early extend it a little bit, which might be a half a golf ball, a full golf ball up. So you need that. The first example was an exaggeration, that foot. You might only be early extending, a golf ball, but you've learned to extend that golf ball extra to make solid contact. So now you have that same release with your slight early extension, and you're trying not to early extend with the same release, so you're gonna hit, a golf ball behind the ball. The next part is how to fix it. Well, what I would suggest is, without a golf ball, get to the top of your swing, there's a mirror behind the phone, and really practice getting cleared. If you really want to fix this, and decreasing your spine angle, and keeping this elbow, this right arm, or your trail arm, if you're a righty, it's your right arm, lefty, it's your left arm, your trail arm, nice and tucked. Don't really release the club. Just feel like it's your body's turn. It almost feel like you're off the ground. You're keeping everything closer to your body. You don't want your grip to get high. You want to keep it pretty close to your legs, kind of coming in like this. It's exaggerated, but that's the feel. Because you're going to need that. If you're going to really, really get a lot of hip depth, you're going to need that kind of arm movement to match it. It feels very odd. Honestly, it feels powerless to me. Like I said, I think there's a happy medium. I don't think excessive hip depth is the answer. You might need to exaggerate that excessive hip depth to fix your problems or to correct an issue. But like I said, a lot of it is simply the root causes of the early extension is why you're early extending. But then once you figure out a way, you're skipping the process of the whole root cause. You're trying to just not early extend without fixing your problem. So the throwing the club from the top, and releasing early, that's almost always going to be the case. That's going to be one issue with all early extenders, is because if you're getting taller at impact, you need to throw the club at the ball to reach it. You need to extend a little bit more. If you start at, let's just make up a number, if that's 180, call this 160 degrees, 150 degrees right here. Say 150 to make it nice and even. This is 150 degrees right here. And I come into the ball at 155, 160. I need to make up that difference with a little bit of arm extension. So if I'm starting at 150 and I get back to 150, I'm good. If I'm starting at 150 and I go down to 140, I need to bring the club that much closer into myself. It's all a spine angle thing, because you're starting at, again, it's the distance the club is from you. I didn't plan any of this, I'm just freestyling right now. But I hope that makes sense. If I were to be someone like a Dustin Johnson, here, stronger grip. He has a strong grip and he's bowed. Everything leads to a closed club face. So he needs to rotate through the ball. He's one of the biggest rotators on tour. And you can see his arms would have to be here to have a square club face and to strike the ball solidly. Without moving my arms, if I were to go into an early extension, you see how big of a difference that is? That's like a half a foot off the ground. Difference between someone, just the arm and hand movements, someone who doesn't early extend and does the opposite, gets a lot of hip depth and gets really open before impact, is way down here, as opposed to someone who early extends a little, is a little more stretched out. So again, I'm just going to reiterate some points. If I were to have the same release pattern as an early extender, but get that hip depth, I'm going to hit it way behind the ball and hit it fat every time. The thing is, our brains aren't that dumb. So right now I'm hitting a foot behind the ball, but you're going to find some middle ground where you're going to not early extend, but your old release pattern wants to hit a foot behind the ground, but you're not that dumb, so you're just kind of, you know, oh, I just caught it a little fat. You're just going to catch it, you know, a little fat or whatever. But nonetheless, you're going to tend to catch that fat every time. That's the big fat issue. That's the biggest issue with early extenders. And this, so the setup is one of the big root causes of early extension. And here's the second biggest issue. If a combination of the setup and this is, you want a nice setup, you're standing up straight, you know, you just crack your knees a little bit just so they're relaxed, they're not locked into place, they're just cracked loose, and you're bent over. You don't need a perfectly straight back. You know, right here, you almost want to soften this up a little bit and kind of bring your belt buckle up to your belly button and kind of have a little bit of a slouched upper back. That's better than an overly arched back. You'd rather it this way than this way. So a little bit of here, you know, nice balanced over your feet. And the issue is, so you're starting, right? My chest here, it's parallel with the target line, perpendicular to the ball at address. But at impact with that depth, it's way here. So that difference between here and here is the amount you need to shallow the club to stay on the same plane. Check it out. If I were to go back, you know, perfect, or here. Perfect. And then if I were to do nothing but rotate, the club just goes over the top. See, I'm at the perfect spot. I'm just, as you rotate, it goes over the top by the time I'm at the ball. So what you really need to do is this feeling of, this is the best feeling, honestly. If you struggle shallowing the club and you want to shallow the club, the old Mo Norman, Ben Hogan, you get to the top, the weight of the club head falls behind you. It's literally this, falls behind you, and what Mo Norman would say, try to hit the heel of your back shoe. So it's like, that's without the release, right there. But what happens is, since you're moving forward, instead of letting it drop, you see how I'm starting to let that drop, and then I'm rotating, and it's keeping it on that nice plane right there, because I'm rotating open. If I were to just go back and do this, it would be steep, right? So you need that drop to stick on that stay on the plane. You need that momentum drop. So it almost feels like you're letting the club drop behind you. Practice that. Honestly, try to hit your heel, or just next to your heel. Basically, try to hit that golf ball right there. That's what it is. It's right there. Here, I'll try to actually hit the golf ball. Ball striking. But anyway, that's the feel. Is you're just dropping it to shallow the club. But of course, in your actual swing, by the time you get almost to the top, you know, 80–90% of the way to the top, you're already beginning to shift forward. I'm already beginning to shift forward as gravity is starting to drop that club, and I'm starting to spin open. So everything just matches up. That drop move is nothing like what it feels when you actually swing. All I'm doing is this. That's the start of my downswing, is this. If I take the rest of it out. It's the same exact, gotta watch what I'm doing. There's a basket of balls there. I was trying to center myself a little more in the camera and have something to hit back here. But anyway, that's the move. It's the drop move. And that's why getting steep, sorry. I'm a little scatterbrained right now. None of this is planned. I'm just kind of spitballing. But so getting steep, right? Because you don't have that little bit of a shallowing move, that little bit of a drop shallow to stay on plane. If you were to just come back and rotate, you get steep. We've established that. So another big issue why people early extend is they're here and they start to turn open towards the ball and they feel the club is too steep. You're gonna, hit a big slice or pull it left because your swing path's too steep. So look what the early extension does. It drops the club to the inside. So being too steep is a big reason people early extend, is to get the club on a little bit more of an inside path. So again, to correct it, it's just feel like you get to the top, you're turning back. If I had a laser pointer on my chest, pointing at my hands, everything, the laser pointer doesn't leave my hands, still on my hands, still on my hands, still on my hands. My chest turns back as far as they could. They separate a little bit and I just let the weight of the club drop. And then as I let the weight of the club drop as I'm falling onto my front foot, which since I'm beginning to rotate, instead of dropping like this, it keeps the club on plane. The two, this act of dropping back and this act of transferring forward counterbalance each other and keep each other on plane. So one motion is this. You're basically doing this, which brings the club over the top. You're basically doing this as well, which drops the club way behind you. You're doing them together, which equals a perfectly planed golf club and a perfectly slotted golf club right there. No early extension, boom, boom, boom. Thank you, ma'am. I know those thoughts were very scatterbrained, but I hope they helped a few people in the process. That pink ball feels great. So I think a little bit of me avoiding my lower back muscles, again, is why I've studied my swing over and over again. Part of the look of my early extension is I start here, like I've said, my butt, and the second I start back, I go like this. I move back a couple inches or so. But I actually, if you look at my early extension, it's not early. I hit the ball, and as I'm hitting the ball, right after impact, I kind of squeeze my butt cheeks together, and I'm kind of, I think that protects my lower back, my herniated disc. Because again, I've never, not once, just from swinging normal, had a sore back unless I try to really get cleared. Oh, good. You can see, did I show, I don't remember if I showed any of the ball strikes. I'm kind of favoring the heel a little bit. I'm getting a touch heely with these strikes. I think I mentioned this. The more I tend to clear my hips back, the more hip depth I get, I heel it more. And the more early extension I get, the more I toe it. That was absolutely flush though. That was nutted. Nutted. It's just kind of in the middle. Though I think it was, one of those over here. I hope those explanations helped. I'm just, making videos for fun. I'm just out here practicing. None of these are planned. None of them are cut and pasted. If I hit a bad shot, you'll see it. That one, straight up schooled that. My skulls are generally a little better than other people's skulls. It was thin. It wasn't, you know, a pure skull. Trying to really feel those feelings. I mean, I work on this stuff all the time. You know, again, it's that feeling of just letting the club drop. I'm hitting my foot, get to the top, and it's just, you're falling into your front foot, letting that club drop. That's the feel. I think this feel would help so many people. Just all the, you know, all the weight that's going back is back. My hands are very loose. The amount of weight it takes to hold this club in the air, like I'm on the verge of the weight of this club dropping it. You know, I'm holding it just strong enough to hold the club in the air without it dropping. That's how much pressure's in my hand. You could yank this club out of my hands. And I'm just turning my shoulders. You know, I'm not doing this with my arms. I'm moving my shoulders back, and it's just right here. Everything's connected. It's just all going back, and there's a little bit of a separation at the top where it just feels like as all the weight's falling into my front foot, the club's dropping here. I think just doing this, practicing, like, look, I could stand right here. I could stand on one foot. All the weight is in my front foot. Same thing with your finish. When you hit a golf ball, that was fat. But in your finish, you should be able to stand on one foot with ease. Have all your pressure getting into your front foot. Usually when I hit it fat, it's because I was a little late, or I do what I was talking about, is I threw the club a little bit early. But I felt there is, I kind of did the old everything back, and then everything forward. It's not that, it's everything back. And as, you know, when your club's getting about halfway there, almost to the top, you're starting to change directions already. You're getting a little head start with your body movement. So it's, you see how as my club's getting to the top, I'm already shifting. It's not, that's the biggest mistake, is there's not a single good golfer that goes back and then goes through. It's as you're getting to the top, you're already getting that head start. And to counteract your body's rotation, which makes the club come over the top, you're letting it drop, which just keeps everything on that one plane. You gotta stop hitting that basket. Boom, boom, falling into the front. Letting the club drop and falling into the front. And again, if you had that early extension where you're throwing the club, feel like you don't use your hands and you keep this elbow tucked. So it almost feels like you're trying to do this, you know, swing above ground. Do some of these where your club's so tucked, you're over the top of the ball. And then instead of throwing the club at the ball, feel like this feel of having the club over the top of the ball. Feel like, sorry, that was a bad example. Just to exaggerate, feel like you're going down after it a little. And you might not want to do this on the courses for practicing. You know, that was really exaggerated. At least I tried to, but really feel like you're going down after it. Because I've said this before, if we break, you need to exaggerate your moves. And if we were to break it down into a spectrum, 1 to 10, say you're at a 10 and you want to get to like a 7, you need to practice 2s and 3s. Like if you're taking the club back too quick and you want to slow your backswing down, the best thing you can do is exaggerate and just, you know, go really, really slow. That's just one example, but like it's so good to exaggerate things. Find your impact is another great one. You know, really get tucked in there. It's more than you'd want to be in your real swing. Really open, really decrease spine angle. And just exaggerate some things, just to really get the feel. Do a handful of shots like that, then go back to your normal swing and try to just retain some of those feels. And rip it down the middle. And don't be scared to miss the ball. Or not miss the ball, but hit bad shots. Those weren't the worst, besides I shanked one trying a silly exaggerated swing. But sometimes that's what it's take. Don't worry about where the ball goes. You're working on movements. It has nothing to do with where the ball goes. The ball is just there for, you know, just for something. You don't even need the ball per se. It does kind of help. You know, if I really wanted to exaggerate this, you know, decreasing like that is insane. I would never be here. You know, that's ridiculous. I can try a few, just getting really open and really decreased. So it's going to be hard to hit one pure like that. I need to really keep the club close to me. That was better. Now go back to my normal swing and just retain some of that feel. It's ripped. Don't be afraid to hit the ball bad. So what? You look worse shooting bad scores than you do doing silly drills on the driving range. And you see Tiger, you know, doing weird things where he's bending over like a table. That's kind of what I was getting at. Is it's kind of like those exaggerated moves like Tiger was doing, but you can do them with a ball, you know. Just to really feel the opposite. Because if you were here, you want to get here, you know, you need to know what it feels like to go equally in the opposite side of the spectrum. Like, that is so awkward. But so what? If it's actually going to make you a better player, isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth hitting some, you know, shitty shots? Grab some more balls. I hope that helped. Like I said, it was a little scatterbrained. None of that was planned. You think, is there anything I was missing? If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to elaborate, but I think I basically covered most things. And it's really impossible to diagnose. There's so many different things that could cause early extension, but it's very rarely like, oh, my hips aren't doing the right thing, that's my problem. It's like, no, your hips aren't doing the right thing because of another flaw. So again, if you really want to fix your early extension, the two number one things I see is setup. Make sure you're set up in a, you know, the right distance from the ball. You know, about a fat width of a fist. You know, right here. Basically, if I set up and I take this hand off, it should fall straight off. If you're too far from the ball, see how my hand dropped back and I'd have to go forward to the grip? I'm too far from the ball. If I'm a little too close to the ball, I take my hand off, went a little forward. You know, so basically, if you just hang your hand, that's the correct distance from the ball, is where your hand just wants to hang. That's a big thing, getting your hips over here. And like I said, if you were early extending, you had to throw the club. So to not early extend, you can't throw the club. You have to feel like you're swinging like this with the club off the ground. Practice that, where you have to exaggerate where, does that make sense? The club's off the ground. I'm not throwing it and extending it and early extending. I need to keep the club up, so I need to go down after it to get the ball. Very exaggerated, but that's what it takes. That was pulled hard left. That's another issue. I tend to hit it left if I don't, when I really get cleared. That was pure. So pure. Didn't leave much of ball marks because they weren't range balls. Oh yeah, really that one. Here's a range ball, it'll leave a mark. Oh, I fucking schooled it. God damn it. I'm sorry, I suck at golf. Oh, thin fucking heel. Bullshit. You can see the rest were my normal spot, a little toe bias. That was just a school off the heel. There it is. That one was honestly a little toey. I'd say right in between the two is perfect for me. That's usually where I hit, is right there. But fuck, it's January. Been trying all these wacky exaggerations. Find the center again. Anyway, I hope all this helped. There it is. Kind of forgot my feels. Definitely forgot my feels. Take a 7-iron. Oh, clean the face. A lot of ball marks. What was it? J Trow Golf, I believe, is this YouTuber that talks a lot about early extension. He almost exclusively talks about it. But he has a lot of great drills for early extension. I won't lie, a lot of it is simply, you know, putting a chair against your butt, keeping your hips back. So the thing is, once you identify the root cause of your early extension, like say it's because you get steep and you know you need to get shallow, just because you fix that, you've also ingrained a little early extension, so you will have to work a little bit keeping your hips back. But it's so important to know why you're early extending before you jump the gun. And you can't just be like, oh, keep my hips back, keep my hips back. It's always going to be a combination of, oh, I was getting steep, so I need to work on letting the club drop, keeping my right arm tucked, you know, and feeling like the club is a little closer to you through impact. So, you know, the club is basically off the ground, so you kind of have to go down after it. Does that make sense? Rather than the opposite with your early extension, you were getting steep, so you early extended and threw the club early to reach the ball. You know, if I was getting here, if I were to turn, I'm getting steep, but I can early extend, which drops the club closer to in the slot. But if I were to just keep the normal hands, it's over the top of the ball, so you're gonna have to throw it at the ball. You have to make up that extra distance. So that extra distance you have to make up for early extending, you have to feel like you're now sucking into your body. It's very much keeping the club. And honestly, just that's great. If you're not even hitting balls, it's just, you know, practicing the mirror, getting to the top, let it drop, let it almost flat. Get that thing flat, you know, 90 degrees flat like a tabletop. And then just practice turning like that. Get the club head here. It's super exaggerated, of course, but I think that would be a great drill for people if they just lay it down and just this high off the ground. You know, you don't want it down on the ground, because if I threw my arms at it, I'm not really fixing anything. That's the feel, because again, when you actually swing, you're going to be there with that little bit of a shallow move. I feel like I'm dropping the club behind me with that one. That feels like this. But, like I said, the two moves counteract each other. If I don't do it and I just do this, it comes over the top. If I don't rotate forward and I just do this, it drops behind me. But that move that makes it come over the top of rotating, and that move that makes it drop behind me, of letting the weight drop and gravity and being relaxed, tension free, combined, one plane. Boom. That's on. Dropping the club. Just dropping the club behind me. But also falling onto my front foot. Falling onto my front foot, and it all counteracts each other. It equals a perfectly slotted golf club. Ripped. A touch skinny. I nitpick. If it's not the most, I'll tell you it's thin, it's toed, it's heeled, it's fat. If it's not perfect, that was a touch thin, but dead center. Would have got away with it. That was. I think a lot of people think that blades are, like, oh, you need to hit them absolutely flush. No. That would have got it. I've played blades like my whole life, but I've also tried, AP2s and other clubs. They're the same. They just don't look as nice. A bad strike is a bad strike. No matter what you do, a sweet spot is the size of a pin, a needle. That one was flush. You can see it was a little higher on the face. That first one was thin. But no matter what you do, a sweet spot is a sweet spot. It's a single point. The bigger sweet spots, that's a myth. There's no such thing as a bigger sweet spot. And besides ball striking, the secret to golf is a combination of, obviously you need the hand-eye coordination and the ball striking and the knowledge, to shape the ball. You need to understand the new laws of ball flight, swing dynamics, yada yada, how to hit the ball. You need a good short game. You need to know how to putt, chip, hit flops, all that. But when you have the shots, you also need to know how to utilize them with good course management. Say this mat was the tee box, and with my driver, I almost always play fades. So I almost always, if this tee is the tee marker, I almost always come right over here to the far right side, which then aims me down the left and kind of takes the right side out of play. But, if it's a dog leg left where I'm hitting a draw, normally I'd go more for like my 1-iron or a 3-wood. A lot of times, say the edge of the mat is the tee marker, you got a tee up inside. A lot of times my feet are outside the tee marker, but the ball's inside of it. I'm way on the left side playing a hook. That's one thing. And also the tee boxes, say I was aiming at that guitar, this is the center of the fairway, but the tee box was shaped like this. That's a tool a lot of greenskeepers use. Because to aim straight, I've talked about this a million times. Pick out a point in front of the ball, about a couple feet, like I see it. This is perfect. So there's a little flake of wood, like a sliver right here, and it's ever so slightly left of target. So I'm gonna pick the right edge of that sliver. It's not just that sliver, it's the right edge of that sliver. I'm gonna come up, and I'm gonna aim my club. This is where I want the ball to start. Your face controls the start line. I'm going to aim at the right edge of this sliver with my club face. Assuming I'm just hitting it pretty straight. I'm going to basically line my body up to that. And especially out on the course, not so much into a net, this makes you feel very open. It makes you feel like you're aimed left because the tee box is aimed so far right. Instinctively, you're going to want to aim a lot further right than normal because of the tee box. So don't always stand behind the shot and line the mofo up, because course architects do this intentionally to throw you off. That's a big one, are the tee boxes. And just knowing how to align yourself. It's so easy to, say you draw the ball, it's really easy to just keep closing your stance, keep closing your stance, keep closing your stance. shooting your aim 20 yards right all the time, feeling like you're straight. And especially, say you draw the ball, all that closing your stance does is make you draw the ball more. If you slice the ball, all that aiming left does is make you slice it more. Like slicers all aim over here, and if they just close their stance, they probably wouldn't slice it. So much of the ball flight is in the stance. Like if I did this, like it would be hard. It would be so hard to close my stance from here. Let me set up actually. It'd be so hard to aim. You know, I'm aimed a little right. That would be hard to come over the top enough to slice the ball from there. You can't not. Poor strike, but it would have hooked, it would have drawn. You can't not draw the ball from a closed stance. It's so hard. And a big mistake people make is, say they slice the ball so they're normally here. They're like, okay, I'm going to try closing my stance, and they do this. All right, this is normal. You know, this is how they normally are open. And they try to close their setup, and they do this. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Nobody's talking to me. My shoulders didn't move. So if I'm set up way left like this, my shoulders are way left, and I do this, I didn't really do much. It helps a little bit, but you want to make sure your shoulders, your chest is aimed. I also see a lot of people where it's like, a lot of people are closed stance, you know, their feet will be aimed this way, when their shoulders are this way, they're like making an X. You know, I see a lot of people like this, or like this. Honestly, this one's a little bit better. I'd rather, it depends what your tendencies are. This is a little bit more of a better player's stance, is just a little open with a, you know, square shoulders. But generally speaking, you want to make sure you're not making an X. You know, if you move your feet closed, you want your shoulders to move with you. If you're opening them, you want it all to move with you. That's a huge mistake people make. Try to hit one a little harder than just hitting little baby shots. Launch. Club was this again? 7-iron? That was the 180 swing. 180 is about max for my 7. You know, if I'm real pumped up, feeling good downwind, I can get it further, but just a normal day, calm conditions, 180 is about max for my 36-degree 7-iron. A little skinny. Definitely a little skinny. But the shot I play most often, I mean, I can hit this 180, yes. Too many people are hitting it too hard. I'll hit this from 150, you know, this is my, you know, I'm hitting it 180, I might close everything, play a little bit of a draw, 180. But 150, I'll choke up a little bit, I'll open my stance and narrow my stance a little bit. And just play a very much that laser beam pointing at my hands that you want to keep pointing at your hands, as I'm always talking about. It just feels like I bring it to the end of my chest turn, to the end of my chest turn, just a turn and a turn, just a little knockdown 157 iron. It's a hair skinny again. It probably would have made it. Wasn't terribly thin. Just picked it clean. This one would be better. There it is. That's the swing. It's easier on the course. Just rifling ball after ball off, you're bound to hit some bad ones. But on the course with more focus, at least personally, I don't hit a lot of bad shots on the course. There it is, just that little chest turn right there. I choked up, boom. I just feel like I'm going here to here. And it, again, I've reiterated this so many times, it's just doom, doom, doom. And that's all it is. And people do the opposite, they're doing this. The laser pointer is doing this. You know, my laser pointer is doing this. Hit that punch shot, theirs is like, meanwhile their arms are like, you can't hit the ball like that. There's nothing to it. It's everything is connected. And the very first thing I talked about, swinging back rhythmically, back and forth rather rhythmically. It's kind of hard to do that with just your arms. I mean, yeah, if you're older, and I've said this before, don't fall into the, so yeah, all the tour players want to take their hands out of it, all the young guys, and use all rotation. If you're older, you don't have that kind of strength, you're going to produce so much more speed in your hands and your arms. I think I went over this already, but just in case I'll do it again. But your hands and arms can produce so much speed. If I don't really use my body much, that's just kind of a little wrist flip. You know, I can hit this 150, this old school 7-iron 150, which I'm sure most older players would be happy with, no? 150 7-iron. Back in my day, if you hit a 7-iron 150, over 150, you were long. You know, it's just a little hand flip. It's just all about the weight transfer. You know, that when I'm doing that, it's just really like, you know, it's not much. Most old people, that's kind of how their transfer is. But the problem is that what everyone's telling us is don't do that. Don't use your arms. It's all a, you know, get open at impact. So you're here, and it's like, yeah, maybe if you're super young, you can do that. But, you know, if you have injuries, or a lot of people aren't as flexible, you can hit the ball pretty damn far with just your hands. So, like I've mentioned before, you can't just give general golf lessons, and that's my biggest gripe with online stuff, is I try not to do you have to do this, this is how it's done. The secret move, it's like, there's no one way to get the job done, and it's all so relative to the player and how the player swings. And there's so many factors. And every player you teach, any good teacher is going to teach each player differently depending on their own unique attributes, I guess, and characteristics. That ball felt so soft compared to these rock hard ones. There's just so many factors, and a good teacher like Butch Harmon knows that. But I've also met, in my day, a ton of pros. It doesn't take much to be a pro. It's not that hard to be a professional teacher. You just need to take some courses, and honestly, half of them are lucky to pass their PAT. But anyway, like, I've met a lot of pros that don't know that much about golf. I think golf's about hitting every position to make your swing look like Adam Scott. And it's like, I can have perfect positions right here. And top the ball. Let's see, perfect positions, check. Why didn't I hit the ball flush? I had perfect positions. What's happening? Perfect positions. Why do I keep topping the ball? Or perfect positions. I grazed the toe. Perfect positions. Shank it. Positions don't mean shit. You know, I don't know, what do I gotta do? I don't know, what's the opposite of positions? ball striking has nothing to do with position. I mean, it's not nothing. Yeah, that was ripped. That was. But there's basic fundamentals, like taking it back as one piece. It doesn't really matter if you're like Trump. Trump actually has a pretty nice swing, I won't lie. A lot of people don't like how he takes it inside. He takes it inside in one piece. It's all a chest turn and comes over the top a little, right onto plane. Everything else is textbook. But it doesn't matter if you come inside, over the top. It doesn't matter if you're Matthew Wolff. You know, it just, besides the basic fundamentals, you can be way open. Ball striking is ball striking, or you can have a swing like Adam Scott. Top the ball. So you don't just magically hit the ball good because of it's the most scattered ball marks I've ever had. But you don't just magically hit the ball good because of your positions. And it's funny, all these online things like, guess my handicap from looking at my swing. And it's like, I don't know how good you are. Your swing means nothing. One of the best players I know sets up very much like this, like a little too far from the ball. He's very loose. His first move off the ball is he leaves the club head and drags it. He's like, very much like this. He's very much, you know, and he's up here and does this with it. I've watched him shoot 229s. I've watched him beat me in a club championship when I came in second place one time. It's just not, you know, positions don't mean shit besides the basic fundamentals, which is a one-piece takeaway, a proper pressure shift, and swing path and club face. The ball is going to start where your club face is aimed, you know. If I have this ball teed up, club path, way left club path. The club path affects the starting line a very, very little bit, but where the line the ball starts on is mostly where the face is aimed. So if the face is pretty straight, but the club path is left, the ball is going to still start straight. It's just going to have slice spin on it. And that's what most slicers do, is they're over the top and they have a straight face, but their path is left. So the ball might start, or they might even have a closed face. A lot of slicers have a closed to the target face. So the ball will actually start left and then slice. It's the club path. Can I hit this club off of a super high tee? Ooh, I might pop it up. Ripped. I feel like this is twice as high as I normally do. The old, what is it? The old McGregor, Nicklaus, one wood, right on the screws. Anyway, oh wow, I'm at an hour now. I've just been out here ranting. Anyway, keep it real, keep it metal. I hope that helped. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Peace.